Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. I'm Maria, your host for the first ever Brain Talk podcast. In the Brain Talk, we discuss various topics related to mental health and neuroscience, exploring them in depth and from a scientific perspective. Today, we're discussing body dysmorphic disorder or BDD, a mental health condition characterized by an obsessive focus on perceived flaws or defects in one's physical appearance. We're honored to have our guest with us, a third-year medical student from Al-Faisal University, Leen. So, Leen, tell us about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to have this interview with you. It's nice to see how you guys have made this initiative, and I hope you reach out to many people and you reach to your goal. So I'm a third-year medical student, as you said. I enjoyed many things before medical school started, but then you learn by time to let go and accept to let go some of the activities or hobbies that you have because you won't have time. But then there are many things you can keep as well. So it's all about priorities. I enjoyed our last block. It was neuroscience. We learned about psychiatry and other neurology aspects. Psychiatry, mentioning psychiatry specifically because this is where body dysmorphia or body dysmorphic disorder or BDD comes under.
Yeah, I really agree with you there. I think BDD really interlies with psychology, and all of the questions I actually have for you, which are backed up in the neuro community, are like how it begins, and is it psychological? Is there like chemicals in your brain? Like when I was writing this down, I was thinking, is it related to like cortisol? Because you know when you're stressed, cortisol gets pumped into your body. Would you say that BD is caused by like these chemicals in your body that like make you look in the mirror and think, I'm not good enough, or this is not good enough for me? Like how does BDD really begin?
So it's more of a mental health condition. That's where you become obsessed with your obsessed or concerned with your flaws or appearance. While hormones themselves do not directly cause body dysmorphia, fluctuations in certain hormones like cortisol, as you mentioned, okay, related to stress, or sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen, they can also potentially influence mood and self-perception. That's what can indirectly be seen in patients with BDD. Yes, however, the primary cause of body dysmorphia are thought to be psychological and genetic factors rather than just hormonal imbalances.
What do you mean by genetics? Do you think it's kind of passed down, or maybe because your mom kind of had it that
Yes,
you've
yes.
got some of it? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think so far from what we studied in medical school as well, most of any disorders literally related to the brain or related to the kidneys even, they all happen because of a certain gene. Cancers happen because of a certain gene that's passed down and inherited by your family, by someone else's family. Inshallah, never anyone. So it's all about genes that are passed down by families. And these genes cause the disease only when they're triggered throughout life due to many reasons. It depends on the disease. So I'm talking about not only brain diseases or disorders, it can be also any other organ. It's the same way. For also psychiatric disorders, which are usually mental and psychologically related, you know, they're not really related to hormones or specific functions in the brain, but they're also due to specific genes and genetics that are passed on by your family. So someone with schizophrenia or the body dysmorphia disorder, all of these people, they've had this disease in someone from their family before.
Yeah, I hear you. When you mentioned testosterone, does that interlie with it being more common in girls or boys? Because according to statistics, it says that it's actually more common in girls. Do you think that relates to anything or how it relates?
Yes, of course. So, as you know, one important major factor is the menstrual cycle that happens in women, right? Now, menstrual cycle, when it happens, there's a lot of hormonal fluctuation. So, we've taken recently in medical school that every single day there's a change in hormones. Every single day is a different day throughout the month. That doesn't happen in men. The same fluctuations, or they don't have much fluctuations. The same hormonal level is maintained throughout the whole month, you see. So it does have a direct relation with the hormonal fluctuations that happen in the menstrual cycle. And that alone explains why statistically it's said that it's proven that women are more likely to have mental or psychiatric disorders compared to men. Yes.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people mention how like the standards of beauty like also, I guess, impacts mostly women. You think that also affects it and the role of social media? How does it affect or develop in exasperation of BDD?
So you're saying how does social media affect how we look at
Mm,
ourselves?
yeah, like
Yeah,
standards and whatnot.
yes, of course it does affect because in our world everything is set by standards for some reason. Even though if it differs from culture to culture, we still always look at ourselves and we actually decide what careers we want to have, how we want to look, what our future would look like,
Mm,
just because of these standards put. And especially social media. Social media can exacerbate BDD specifically because it promotes unrealistic beauty standards and it triggers comparison behaviors. You see some of these influencers who pay thousands of dollars a month on whatever beauty standards they want to have. And then you, a simple girl, you're comparing yourself to these people on social media. And they say, oh my God, this is how I look. They don't even explain how much they've spent money and efforts and like to reach
mm,
to specific targets. Well, you've never had this, right? You've never had the idea that, oh my God, I need to do so many surgeries. I need to do so much efforts to reach a specific way. You never thought that it takes all of that. You thought that she was just like this as always, or he was always looking this good, or she was always looking this good. And then you start looking at yourself and you be like, why am I not like this? It's simply because you've never even thought that it takes this much efforts and money and all of that to reach to that goal or to become the same standard that these people on social media are showing. So all of this awareness is very important for us when we grow up. I mean, as we grow up, it's very important to have this awareness. Else, it's very common to develop BDD. I mean, yes, of course, you shouldn't think that any of the characteristics or symptoms BDD patients have. Sometimes we have these symptoms and then we think, oh my God, now we have some psychiatric issue. But no, it's not really like that. When you doubt yourself from time to time, it does not have that. It does not mean that you have the disorder. It just means you're doubting yourself a bit and then you have
mm.
to chill a bit. That's all.
Yeah. So how do you think BD can differ from like general body dissatisfaction? As you mentioned, like when does it cross the line and it becomes a disorder, you know? And does it
So
also
you mean
entail to how we always self-diagnose and overdiagnose?
so you mean when does it become concerning that one's body turn into BDD?
Yeah.
Sure, that's a good question. So concern with one's body turns into BDD when it causes distress, interferes with daily life, and is accompanied by compulsive behaviors. Like your life is literally changing because of this thought or this standard that you want to reach to.
Hmm.
But yeah, you want to reach to, or you wish you were like this since you were born, you know? So I can take you through some of the symptoms or characteristics of BDD or body disorder.
Yeah, we'd love to hear
So
that.
yeah, so these patients usually present with spending excessive time examining themselves in mirrors, or they try to avoid looking at themselves at all, totally avoid it. So they either look at themselves in the mirror the whole time, or they avoid it totally. You see, and they also engage in repetitive behaviors like skin picking, excessive grooming, or seeking constant reassurance about their appearance. So every time they meet their friend or someone, they keep asking, did I gain weight? Did I lose weight? Do I look good? Do I not look good? And that opinion that that person gives, like, yani, matters to them very much. You know,
Mm,
like any other opinion from that person about any other topic wouldn't matter as much as the opinion they give about losing or gaining weight
yeah.
to that BDD patient, you know, or person.
Yeah, I feel like there's something to
So,
say
yeah.
about compliments to people like based off their physical appearance.
Yes. So exactly that person. So there's a patient with BDD, and then they get complimented about their how they're doing a great job at being their careers, for example, right? They would
Mhm.
feel good about it. They'd be like, "Oh, thank you very much," you know. But then let's say that same person tells them, "You've lost weight recently. You look, you know, you've lost weight." They just say it, you know, randomly. That BDD person would feel so much more emotion towards this compliment, way more than how they felt in the first compliment about their careers, you see?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. They also suffer from intense emotional distress, anxiety, or depression related to their perceived physical flaws. So all of us have flaws, and that's natural and that's normal, right? And it's also normal to doubt how we look from time to time, or want to be up to else's standards, or to the
Hmm.
social media standards. That's normal from time to time to have these thoughts, but then to persistently have these thoughts continuously every day, and you're getting depressed and your whole life is changing, just yeah, and you're literally skipping school for weeks, you know, you're persistently being stubborn about this, then that becomes a disorder. But if you're from time to time just doubting yourself, or you're crying about how fat you look or something like that, or how skinny you look, or etc., you know, or how your hair is short, you want it long, or how it's long, you want it short, and all of these things from time to time, that's normal, that's natural, especially at the teenager's age. But then when it becomes persistent for weeks, and you're changing things in your life just for this one factor, this becomes a disorder, you know, this needs medical attention. So that's one thing. They also avoid social situations. The BDD people with BDD, they avoid social situations or feel compelled to conceal perceived imperfections with makeup, clothing, etc. They like, as I said, they just want to look different as much as possible because they constantly doubt how they appear. So that's some of the symptoms and characteristics of people with BDD. If you wonder about how prevalent it is, it's relatively common. يعني it's affecting 1.7% to 2.9% of a general population. I know this doesn't sound like a 30% of the population, but that would be very severe. But 1.7% is actually a good amount of people. So you're saying a good amount of people feel like they're not enough, feel that their flaws are too much for any person to tolerate, you know? Typically begins during adolescence, teenage years, you know, a critical period for development of body image. So that's about prevalence. If you want to speak about how does it change the brain, or some brain related aspects, body dysmorphic disorder, it's always, I'm sorry, I mean, like, it's commonly associated with abnormalities in the brain structure and function. So what do I mean by that? So you see in many disorders, whether they're related to the brain or any other organ, the brain is an organ just like the heart, kidney, the liver. You see how the kidney and the liver and the heart, they change shape when there's a disorder. They shrink, or they become swollen, right? Hypertrophy or atrophies.
Mm.
So these changes also happen in the brain the same way. It either atrophies, like it shrinks literally, and more gaps form in the brain. You see more black on a CT scan brain image, or it swells up. So it depends on the disorder. Just like any other organ, it gets affected structurally. This is what I mean. So as the brain is the most important organ in our body, right? Functions that it sends are important for every other organ in our body. So if it's affected, it's a very severe thing, right? So they're like
Mm.
scientists. Scientists show that in neuroimaging, when they do neuroimaging, they show the brain. They identify several brain regions involved in and affected in people with BDD. So generally speaking, you have four lobes in the brain. Do you know them?
Actually, no.
Yeah. So you have four lobes in the brain. So you have the brain cortex. It's one. It's your whole brain basically. Everything under your skull, everything under your skin. It's one cortex, the whole brain, right? And then it's divided into four lobes or parts or sections. You have the frontal lobe, the temporal, occipital, and parietal lobe. In BDD patients, what's mostly affected is the frontal lobe and the orbitofrontal lobe
Mm-hmm.
specifically. Why is this important to know? Because these lobes, each of them controls a specific part of your behavior or specific functions. Each lobe has specific functions. The
Mm-hmm.
frontal lobe, for example, that's affected in BDD patients, it's important for decision making. For a very important thing it does is it calms you down, basically. It's your conscious part. So the amygdala, another part in your brain, what gives you all the fear. It's what releases all the hormones that give you fear when you're in a situation that requires fear, right? And fear or amygdala, it usually gives you this fear for stupid things that you don't need the fear for. Like when you look at yourself, when someone looks at themselves in the mirror and then they have some flaws or things that are not up to their standards, I think they start fearing, right? That's because of the amygdala. Now the frontal lobe comes and calms the amygdala down. It controls it. So that's how the frontal lobe is very important and vital. So why I'm saying this is because people with BDD, scientists have noticed in neuroimaging that the frontal lobe is affected structurally. As I said, it's the region involved in decision making and reward system and punishment system. So when you see hyperactivity in this area, orbitofrontal cortex, it makes them overly focus on perceived flaws. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah, so orbitofrontal cortex have the caudate nucleus as well affected. The amygdala, as I spoke, sends a lot of the fear hormones, right? And especially because the frontal cortex or the frontal lobe is affected, it can't calm it down, can't calm the
Uh-huh.
amygdala down. So this just makes a whole party in the brain.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, so that's all for what's affected in the brain and for the characteristics of BDD.
Mm-mm. I feel like kind of understood what BDD is, but a lot of the questions we got from our community was more about what it is down to I guess, person to person perspective. Like one person actually thinks, is BDD just about wanting to be skinny, or is it more than that? And what does it really entail? I thought this question was a really common question that a lot of people have about what it truly is.
Yeah, so BDD is not just about wanting to be skinny. It involves obsessive preoccupation
Mm-hmm.
with perceived flaws. What do I mean by perceived flaws? Like things that they don't like in their appearance, right? They constantly and obsessively focus on their flaws in their appearance, which can vary widely. As I told you, looking at yourself in the mirror one of those days and going like, oh my God, I wish I was skinnier, or I wish I had more weight in these areas. I wish I had this length of my hair. I wish I had clear skin. Many things about your appearance, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
normal. But having this from time to time, it's very natural, especially at the teenage years or the adolescence. But then looking at the mirror every single day, every single minute, or not wanting to look at yourself at all for weeks and months, and it becomes common behavior of yours that you don't want to look at yourself at all. Or the other way, you look at yourself too much and you keep mentioning your flaws too much and only your flaws, like you're not accepting them at all, and you're not positive about the other things that you like in your appearance, right?
Mm-hmm.
This becomes not normal anymore. So when you're being obsessive about it, and your life is changing, you're not going to school anymore. You're not
Mm-hmm.
talking to people. You're not going out with your friends anymore because you think your appearance is bad, or you think your flaws are too much for anyone else to meet you. You don't want anyone to see your flaws, and so on. So this is what makes it like what differs a normal and a common a common way of seeing yourself from having BDD. Wanting to be skinny from time to time, that's normal. When you look at yourself and you go like, I wish I was skinnier, and you start doing some gym stuff, some workouts at 3 a.m., that's normal, okay? If anything, that's good because you're taking a reason and you're improving, right? That's nice, you know. But when you're being obsessed about it, like you're not improving. Okay, you took the gym route, right? You started going to the gym and all that just to improve that flaw that you think you have, right? If you also do it excessively, the gym, or being obsessive about it, so this is the key word here, being obsessive or excessive about one thing makes it dangerous. This is where it becomes abnormal because you might develop anorexia. That's where people they only start going to the gym and they work out and exercise very much and they eat very less. They eat around 300 calories a day, which is very, very little. You see? In any of those stages, you're doing anything obsessively or excessively, that's where it becomes abnormal. Otherwise, when you just doubt yourself from time to time, that's normal. But if you're excessively doubting yourself, then that becomes abnormal and you need medical attention. But yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I feel that really cleared up a lot of things. I feel like we've kind of gotten to what BD is. And when it's just, I don't like how I look in the mirror from time to time to this is a problem and I need a cure for it. What are those cures? Can we go to therapy? What is like the best approach that have high success rates?
Yeah, so this is a good question. There is no cures for most of the psychological, psychiatric, most of the psychiatric or psychological disorders, they don't really have cures. So there is some medication, there is some therapy that can help ease your life, that can help the symptoms. So especially in mental disorders, they target the symptoms. What the symptoms mean? The signs that they feel, like depression because of this disorder, anxiety, stuff like this. So the symptoms, the characteristics seen because of or developed because of this disorder. So in mental disorders, they usually target these issues instead. They can't, because you can't treat mental disorders. They're psychological, right? It's not like when you have some kidney stone, you just remove the stone and then you're back to life normally, right? It's not like that, unfortunately. So you can only treat the symptoms that come because of this disorder. So they present with anxiety or lack of sleep, insomnia, or so on. You give them sleep pills or you give them anti-anxiety medications, Other than this, there is also medications that help release the good hormones. I mean, there's no good and bad hormones. I mean, the hormones that make you feel positive about yourself or positive about your life, like endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and so on. I'm sure you've heard of
serotonin.
Yeah. So they give medication like this, or most important, in my opinion, and what we've taken in medical school, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. So from the name therapy, the doctor, the psychiatrist, okay, they speak, they do a lot of meetings, they do a lot of sessions with these patients, and they speak with them about the issues they have specifically, more deeply, they give and take with them and they try to make them feel better about it. That's CBT. It also depends very much on the family and the environment that the patient has. They have to be encouraging and they play a huge role. So yeah, CBT, it shows highest success rates among treatment approaches. Medication, as I told you, just helps the signs and the symptoms specifically. And it cannot treat, no, it can help manage the disorder, Most medications like this, most of the medications are used this way in any mental disorders. Yeah, that's all.
So speaking about friends and family, how can we support someone who's struggling with it? And what are like the warning signs? Because I actually have a friend who has BD and I think I see the signs, but for other people, what are the signs?
Okay, so let's speak about how can friends and family support someone with BDD, and then we'll speak about symptoms and signs, okay?
Okay.
So friends and family, they can support someone with BDD, very important role. They have a very important role by listening and non-judgmentally encouraging treatment and helping them avoid triggers. So BDD itself was developed because of some childhood bullying or some body image, a bad negative body image they were told they have from early on before adolescence, and then they develop BDD through adolescence, throughout their adolescence years. So friends and family can support them by encouraging them and by listening to them, by being non-judgmental, by stopping, if they were the reason, by stopping all the negative remarks specifically. And that's all for how can family and friends help, really. Just supporting, being there, listening to them. And then you're saying what are some warning signs that someone might be developing?
Yeah. What are some warning signs? Yeah.
Warning signs of developing BDD can include excessive concern with appearance. Like I said, they are excessive. This is the key word, because this is what differentiates it from just normally doubting yourself from time to time. So BDD specifically, they are excessively concerned with appearance, avoidance. Yeah, so with appearance, they also avoid social situations because they're too much concerned about how they look, right? And there's frequent checking of appearance in mirrors, or not checking at all. They don't want to see how they look at all. They feel that much negative about their appearance. So these are some warning signs that might indicate BDD.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I think also BDD may stem, even though friends and family should be the ones helping you get through it, because of the environment symptoms are put through, it's actually stemming from their family. Like, I know I may relate, being in an Arab household, your grandmother saying, eat more, eat less, you look too skinny. And I think also once you have that BDD, it's taboo, to get that therapy or the help that you need. People think it's taboo. What's your opinion on that? And is there any advice you can do to change this cultural, I guess, taboo idea of BDD?
Yeah, I understand where you're getting at, because this is one major issue that many people with mental disorders face, and that's the reason they don't try to go and find treatment. They don't try to ask for help just because of their image in front of people, their image in front of their friends, their family, their grandparents, whatever they are, these people. They make them feel, they discourage them. This way is discouraging them to find treatment and to finally feel better, right? So this is, so this is a very bad issue that they face. And we've studied in medical school, like recently, the block we took, it was about how people with schizophrenia is, I think, number one disorder in terms of how damaging, how dangerous it is. Schizophrenia is very, very horrible. Their life ends just because of some mental disorder. Can you believe that? And it can't even be seen. Yani, yes, you can see some damage in the brain, but that's very later on. That's when they're close to death. That's once they reach to their third stage, which is really bad. What I'm trying to get at is that we studied that people with schizophrenia, and they know that they feel something is wrong with them, right? The hallucinations and all of this, they feel something is bad happening to them, but they refrain from going and getting medical attention just because they're scared of their image. They're scared of having any bad or negative image in the community, which is very bad. Like, people should spread awareness about mental health. They should spread and encourage people to encourage those people they think have any mental disorders, because mental disorders, just like any other health-related issues, can develop and deteriorate and worsen. Just like how a kidney stone, if you don't remove the stone, it will develop more stones, or this one single stone can block a whole artery or a whole flow, and can lead to death. Literally, thrombosis can happen, which is like a chunk of a blood clot forms and goes into an important big artery and stops the flow of blood in the body, and this can lead to death within minutes. Yani before an ambulance can even reach. It's the same thing. So you see how I'm saying about the kidney stone thing, to relate it and compare it with a mental health issue. Mental health disorders can also worsen, just like how a kidney stone can also cause severe cases, right? So that's how people should spread awareness. And this initiative that you guys have, you should also use it as a tool to spread awareness. It's very important. You're going to learn as well later on in college, inshallah. There's going to be a lot of these like initiatives or like clubs where they have a specific whole team just for awareness. And usually students, they go like, I don't want to be an awareness team. It's boring. But awareness team, in my opinion, is the most important team. Although they don't do much, it's just about posters and all of that. But it's the most important team in any initiative related to health, related to careers, related to medicine. It's very important because it's a crucial point, because it can stop a disease or a disorder from worsening or even happening in the first place. Because if, let's say, one grandma who frequently bullies her grandson about how fat he is, right, passes by when she's walking in the mall, and an awareness team was speaking on mental health, right? And she sees one of these posters about how actually words matter so much, especially to young kids, especially to people who are in their teenage years or even a bit before that. And she sees that, and then she feels like, okay, now someone told me that I'm wrong. Now I can stop saying these hurtful words to the young kid, because she thought they were funny, or she thought she was doing good by encouraging him to work out or whatever. But he's actually developing a disorder because of that, you see? So now she stops doing these hurtful things. So that's one way to answer your question. Actually, I didn't answer your question. I was talking about how it's a very bad thing that happens, and it makes people stop from reaching out and getting treated. Now, your question was specifically how to overcome this issue, right? I think there's no medication. There's no like specific medication that you can give, or a specific way you can take to overcome or avoid this taboo, as you said. You can just, by family and friends, they can encourage that person that they see is facing issues, right? Mental issues. They can encourage him or her to seek medical attention, to seek treatment, and they can show these people. That's why I was talking about awareness. Awareness is key here. Awareness, not for the patient, no, for the people around the patient, because they're the ones responsible for encouraging the patient to seek medical attention and treatment. So awareness is the biggest thing they can do. Awareness, biggest way to overcome any of these issues. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I think awareness is key is a great point to end this podcast on. Thank you for coming and spending your time with us. Tell everyone about what you do and who you are. It was really great talking with you.
It was really nice to talk with you guys, and I actually enjoyed.
Oh, thank you so much.